Most exciting day on our Christian calendar. Would you agree? This is like it. Like Christmas, great Christmas, because Jesus was born and we celebrate that. That's good. But man, isn't it great to celebrate not only his death on Friday, but that he proved that he was God through resurrecting himself. He had mastery over death. He showed us then that he had defeated sin. He had come through as he said he would, and he has risen again. His disciples went from being despondent and being upset, feeling as though the last 3 years of their life had been wasted, or at the very least that it hadn't come as they wanted, expected, hoped it would. And suddenly Jesus appeared again alive, appeared as a video showed to many different people, and that same excitement that the disciples have of Jesus saying he would come back, we still have, because he went, ascended up to heaven to be with God. 2,000 years has passed, and we're still with that hope that he's not going to resurrect, but he's going to come back. He is alive. So many other religions in the world speak about a man that they'd followed who died in the past. Jesus is the one who is still alive. How good is that? I thought that was way better than that. If I said, everyone gets free chocolate at the end of the service, then it'd be like, woo! If I said Jesus rose again and he's coming back. Yay! Okay, that's good. Okay, so that's the kind of the feel that I think we should have. Good on Easter Sunday. Funny. Class when I came in, he told me that he didn't resurrect this morning quite as well as Jesus did, and I think that in the first service we need a little bit more energy to feed back that feeling of the excitement of what today will bring, and with that excitement comes the reality that Jesus not only promised that he would come back, but he promised to give us so much while we're here, to live out life, to go through life and engage with people in a different way than everyone else who lives on this planet. Those of us who've interacted, who've given our lives to Jesus, who've understood his death and his resurrection and kind of owned that for ourselves and said, we want to follow you, Jesus. Today we're going to learn a little bit about the realities of that for us. Because I believe as we get to know Jesus more, we love Jesus more. As we engage with Jesus, we get closer to him, and the closer we get to him, the closer we get to being the people who he's created us to be. And so that's a good thing. So let's dive in. Today, we're looking at the last in the I Am series, the statements that Jesus has been making all through the book of John, that he is, ultimately that he is God, but he leads us along through so many of these I Am statements. And today we come to the last one, and it's speaking about fruit. And the kind of fruit that it's speaking about is actually like a metaphor for character traits that happen in our lives the closer we get to Jesus. And so in the book of Galatians, we read and unpack what this fruit is. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. If you've grown up with kids and Colin Buchanan, you'll be able to sing that along in your mind as you're doing, or maybe if you went to Sunday school, this is one of the memory verse ones that many of us kind of go through. We hear and understand that there's fruit that comes. A fruitful life is one, as a Christian, as a believer, as we grow closer to Jesus. These character traits kind of grow in us. We become more loving, more joy-filled, more gentle, more humble. We develop and grow in these character traits because of God's Spirit working within us. And some of you may know Christians and you kind of think, wait a minute, that doesn't seem like their lives are very fruity. And I would say to you, that's very judgy. But at the same time, we're all works in progress, right? Like wherever we are on this journey of faith, some of us have come, from a long way behind and we're still catching up. Some of us kind of grew up and engaged a lot with faith and had a lot of character growth within us. And this passage, though, is drawing us, and this idea that we're going to look at it fruit is saying that the more you get closer to Jesus, the more connected you are with him, the greater this fruitiness should be revealed in our lives. To give a little context to the particular passage we're looking at today, if you were here on Friday, it connects very closely because there was a whole passage of things. There's a whole lot of things that Jesus shared with his disciples on the night before he was crucified. So Thursday night, he's with his disciples in a special meal called the Passover meal. He met with them and they ate together, and he shared a number of teaching points through this that John writes out. Like there's 4 chapters of Jesus just teaching and engaging and sharing with them amazing things, deep things that were they to grasp them then, they might have had a better Friday, Saturday, but after Sunday, they grasped them even deeper, and John wrote them down for us. And so this is what Jesus said, just a little snippet of one of the things that Jesus said. He said, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You're already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing." Okay, this is a massive kind of passage. And if you're not a gardener, this might include a few things that you weren't fully aware of. For the people that Jesus was speaking to, talking about vines, talking about this would have been natural to them, because the vine, anyone know what type of vine Jesus might have been talking about here? Any ideas? Grapevine, yeah. Okay, so in the Middle East, in that time, the main drink that people drank was grape juice fermented into wine. And so most people would have seen vineyards around the place. Many would have had vines growing in their backyard so that they could produce their own a certain amount of grape juice, but they would have seen these around the place. So very common for people living in that time. They would have understood that vines produce grapes and the basics of what it meant to tend the vines. As well as that, there was a number of connections in their scriptures, the Old Testament, that speaks about the vine being the nation of Israel. The problem was that every time this analogy was used, the vine would be spoken of in a negative context, because the nation of Israel, the Jewish people, weren't always doing they weren't always good, right? They weren't always doing what God had told them to do. They had kind of strayed away from God, and God would warn them, "I'm going to prune you, I'm going to cut you off, I'm going to take you apart." So here, when Jesus says, "I am the true vine," there's a shift. They go, they would have understood. Okay, vines, we know vines, we understand. But there's a connection here. Israel's the vine. Now the vine's being replaced by the true vine being Jesus. And why this is a great analogy is that unlike trees that grow a branch that then grows another branch that grows another branch, vines just have one main stalk, and off that stalk grow branches and grows leaves and grows fruit from those. But they don't grow branches that grow branches. Why is that important? Well, it's important because when this is speaking about us as a branch, we can't be branches that are attached to someone else's faith. We don't have a faith that's inherited and given to us by someone else. We have our own faith. We are connected to the vine. We're not connected to someone who's connected to the vine. When Michaela was a baby, 18 years ago, I might say, 18. When she was a baby, Kirsten actually got with 9 other mums. The hospital kind of put them together in this mums and bubs group, which was great. We're living down the coast. We immediately found a friendship group that we were really deeply connected with. It was a great time. All of our kids were kind of growing up together, and we had a lot of fun with these 10 families coming together. Now, I knew, and I'm not being overly judgy here, but I knew as a pastor, it's kind of obvious that I'm a Christian, okay? I'll just throw that out there. You probably already know this and understand that, otherwise I wouldn't get the job. But as a pastor, when someone says, "What do you do?" I'm a pastor. Okay, they know, okay, you're a Christian. If you're a Christian at that time, there's some conversations that you might have to identify yourself. I'm a Christian too. Great, we get along. These 9 other families weren't Christians because we've been praying for them, speaking to them, and we'd known every time we'd had these conversations, they got chopped down, shut down, no thanks, not interested. Okay, so we were aware of our standing spiritually wise with this group of people. The interesting thing was, about 6 months into our friendship, our friends started to invite us along to christening ceremonies. Now, a christening ceremony is kind of like what we do here with dedication, but it's kind of more like an early baptism. They, sprinkle. It's a Catholic, it's an Anglican thing, and a lot of people who are christening their babies were christening them because their parents were christened, and because their grandparents were christened, and because their great-grandparents were christened. And they got christened so that they could be done, and they'd be ticked off. They'd tick that box. Okay, they're Christians because they want to be in that group, not the other group, Don't want to be one of them. Want to make sure we tick that box, get our place sorted in heaven, nice and early on in the piece. So we went to these christening ceremonies where our friends who, as I said, not being judgy, but didn't believe in Jesus in the same way, connection, heart, and they would say, the priest would say, do you want your child to grow up knowing Jesus? And they would say yes. And we were like, woo, all right, there's a bit of hope. And they would say, do you believe? Will you? And they were like agreeing to all this kind of stuff. We were just flabbergasted. We went to a barbecue for lunch afterwards, as is the way. After you have a ceremony, you go to the barbie and we chat. And I was asking them about, wow, you're saying all these great things about faith. And it's like they were just like, how, like, they're in a daze or they didn't understand. What are you talking about? I said things about faith. No, we just ticked that box. We just went on with life. We're just adding to the chain of faith that our families all have. We're Christians now, right? And there were some good conversations, not many, that came out of that. But this is the idea that this is the opposite of what Jesus is saying. He's saying, no. You can't be a branch on someone else's branch. You can't rely on someone else's faith. This is a vine, and we all grow off that vine. We're connected to the vine from our personal connection with Jesus, not because someone else in our family has had a connection to Jesus. How does that sound? Does that sound good? A little scary? So Jesus goes on and says, if you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up and thrown into the fire and burned. That's a bit of a scary kind of thought, that if we're not connected to the vine, then our branch falls away, it dies. It's not getting any nutrients from the branch. It's not alive anymore. It has died. And so a dead branch gets taken and it gets thrown into the fire. It gets disposed of. And this is Jesus' analogy to say those people who aren't connected to me, they end up being thrown into the fire, living out an eternity of their choosing in a terrible place called hell. And so that's not what we want for anyone. We want to make sure everyone is connected into the vine. And to be connected into the vine is to celebrate on Easter Sunday that Jesus recognized that we couldn't have relationship with him all by ourselves. We were trying to do good things to attach ourselves to the vine. And we see this all the time. We see people coming with their bunch of grapes and saying, look at the good things that I've done. Look at the fruit of the Spirit, because we can all grow in the fruit of the Spirit, right? Like when you look at that list, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control, we can grow in those things. And growing in those things can happen because we found a girl and suddenly we want to start showering and being a nicer human being, right? Or it might be because we got a job and we've got to smarten ourselves up. It might be because someone has told us something about our character that isn't good and we're like, okay, I got to change that. And so we can change things to be better human beings. We can change our character and develop our character a little bit. It's kind of like growing grapes and saying, here's my grapes, I'm going to bring them to you. And character change can happen in a few different ways. There's 3 ways I thought that character change can happen. It can happen through pride, it can happen through fear, or it can happen through love. Imagine this scenario. A man and a woman, they're going through a counselling situation, and in this counselling situation, she says to the counsellor, he never lets me make decisions in our relationship. He's always controlling of me. He's never allowing me to be my own person. I can't flourish. I feel trapped. And so he says to her, wow, I knew it was bad. I didn't realize it was this bad. And at this point, he can kind of decide to change in 3 different ways. One can be, he can change because of pride. Well, man, I don't want this relationship to fall apart. How bad would that look to everyone else if I was divorced or separated? That would seem as though I've made a mistake in life. I don't want that to be. So I'll change because I want to make myself look better. Or it could be fear. man, I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to do anything in my life. She's been the one that's been guiding and, she's been helping. I better change, otherwise I'm afraid that this marriage might break down. I better change because of me. Or the third way is, man, I see now what she's saying. I see that she's hurt. My love for her sees the pain that she's going through. I need to change because of love. And see, that's the true type of change that we see character change developing into good change. And this is where we can only change in our fruitfulness if we are attached to the vine. If we love Jesus, then we will change because of our love for him, not because of our pride. Well, I want to get in, look at all the great things that I've done. Look at this, Jesus, here's my fruit. You've got to accept me into heaven because I've done enough. I'm a good person. Look at all of my good deeds. Look at my bunch of grapes. I'm going to stick them onto the vine, and that will show you how fruitful, how great I am. Or fear. Jesus, please take these grapes because, man, I don't want to end up in the fire. The fire seems like a terrible place. I want to come to you because I'm afraid that without being connected to you, then I'll live a life in eternity separate. I don't want that. So fear or pride or love. And love is to say, God, I recognize that I've done things that are wrong and hurtful to you. I need to come to you and apologize for the things that I've done wrong that hurt you. See how love shifts? The importance isn't look at me, how great I am, or oh no, how terrible I am. It's how great are you, God? How good are you? How amazing is the vine? How fruit-bearing is the vine? I want to attach myself to the vine because the vine is great. I love you, Jesus, and because I've hurt you, I want to change. And so we see that spiritual fruit comes through a loving relationship with the vine, with Jesus. Jesus goes on and says, remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. So much of life is trying to do good things to please God, and he's saying, nah, you can't do anything good. You can't do anything out of your own branch that will be good enough for me to see and go, wow, that's awesome. But if you connect yourself into me, then everything that we do together will be good. The fruit will come, the character change will come, the Spirit will flow in you and change you because of our relationship, not because you're trying to force some fruit out of your little bit of the vine. He says, I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And finally, it says, I'm the true vine and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. I learned from Tom, when we go and do our men's breakfast, Tom has a little mini vineyard in his backyard. He's got trellises up and he's got all these vines growing and amazing grapes. And so he said to me that he has to go and trim off a number of the branches and the little bits of fruit that start, because the vine, if you let it keep fruiting all its fruit, it won't fruit as much fruit. It'll just fruit little bits. And so you have to cut off so the bits of fruit that will grow bigger. And this pruning process is Jesus saying the Father, God the Father is the vine dresser, is the gardener who comes through and prunes off things in our lives. And so it's this vision, this picture of, as we go through life, as we are connected to the vine, as we grow as a branch, what we'll also do is as we grow, he's going to come and prune us. He's going to allow things in our life to come that will challenge us, that will be difficult for us. Because as much as it's great to grow just in good conditions, but we know that our character grows greatly when we go through difficulties. No one likes to hear that. That's not like a popular thing to say, oh yeah, difficulty, come my way. But when we look back at our life and we see the things that we've done and we've been through, those hard, difficult times are often the times of greatest growth. That as we reflect on them, as the Spirit works in our life through them to shine the light on those things that we've done wrong, as we humbly look at them and say, God, what can I learn through this? How can I grow through this? As we're pruned, then new life grows because of the changes that we make and the growth that comes. God's going to keep pruning us throughout our lives because he wants a greater harvest. And if we would just all the time just enjoy having the greatest life, we just wouldn't grow. And so he allows things to come into our life to grow. And the cool thing I think about this idea of fruit is that fruit comes, but it only comes kind of once a year, right? Now, I'm not saying that our spiritual growth will only happen once a year, but sometimes we can go through dry times where we're feeling, man, God, I don't feel you're there with me, or God, I don't feel as though I'm growing in this point in time. And then growth comes all in a flurry. It seems to all happen at once. And in the same way, the vine produces fruit at different times of the year. We get moments of great growth and moments where small growth happens. And so as we look back, we can see those seasons of our life, and we can recognize that God's working through all of it. Being connected to the vine has to happen in the growth periods where there's just little nubs of grapes just starting out, as much as when the grapes are forming and filling out. We need to be connected to the vine all the way through so that the rhythms of growth will happen throughout our life. And finally, what I think is great about the kingdom of God, about the great mighty vine, is that one bunch of grapes doesn't actually make a lot of wine. It doesn't actually make a lot of juice for us to drink. One bunch of grapes won't do it for us to sustain us through the whole year. But as you look at a vineyard, as you look at the multiple bunch of grapes that has to happen for us all to continue to drink throughout the year, then we start seeing the importance of community. We start seeing the beauty of God's church. That as we come together to celebrate, to mourn, to love, to hug, to engage, embrace one another in life. One person's fruitful moment might be the moment that we all celebrate. Another person's pruning might be the time that we get around them and embrace them. The beauty of the vine is it's not just my branch all alone, but it's my branch among branches. It's my fruit amongst fruit. And the fruitfulness that comes as we all engage in this growth together comes as we engage in community and get to know one another and share the good and the bad throughout life. God wants us to grow. He wants us to have days of joy like Easter Sunday. He wants us to go through difficult, painful times of pruning because he knows that our best will come through those times of trial. He wants us to grow closer and deeper in our love relationship with him, that our hearts might not be filled with pride and self-interest, that our hearts might not be filled with fear, but instead they'd be filled with the fruit of the Spirit. And as we have love and joy and peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, as that grows in our lives, then we become the people who Jesus called us to be. We become the light shining on a hill. We become the hope of the community that lives around us. We become the love that connects to our Creator and connects with those in our community. And as we'll see this afternoon, connects with a wide community that lives around us, many of whom who don't yet know Jesus, but who Jesus can shine out through those of us who believe in him. People can see the story of Jesus' life through us as we grow in our fruitfulness for him. Let's pray.